Hello everyone, and today we're looking for love to level up further in a new world here at the Proving Grounds. Today we're going to talk about Moon, or as it's been called in America, because let's face it, Moon is a incredibly generic term that is literally in the titles of thousands of games probably by this point, as it's being called in the western part of the world Moon. We mix RPG eventual. But we will just keep calling it Moon. So, Moon was originally a PS1 game, and I knew of its existence prior to its Western release on the Switch. But admittedly, I didn't know really much about it. The only thing I really knew about is that the graphics were very reminiscent of Saga Frontier 1 on the PlayStation 1, and then being a PS1 game kind of makes sense. And we've been streaming it on Twitch and everything and that, and while I had a few parts I had to look up near the end, it was a very enjoyable game. Now, Moon is an adventure game, and don't let the Western title Remix RPG Adventure trick you into thinking it's a JRPG. That has to do with the story. It is, by its core, an adventure point-and-click-esque type game. Though you don't point or click, your character acts as your cursor interacting with everything, but it is in that vein, where you collect items, you interact with people, figure out problems, and figure out how to keep going forward. What's really interesting, though, is it does technically have RPG mechanic in it, but not in the sense that you're familiar with in an RPG. Your character levels up by gathering love instead of getting EXP, and that love translates to making your day longer. But I'm getting ahead of myself at this point, so let's start in the beginning, the story. You start out as a boy playing a RPG, and you play 4 segments of this RPG. They are very short, they are quick, and they get the point of what's going on pretty quickly as the kid goes through the story beats. So, it's kind of just rushing through the gameplay, and then you get into several encounters, get to the final boss, and you kick its ass, and your mother tells you to go sleep. You turn off the system, and you go to make your way to bed, but your TV comes back on, and as you go over to turn it back off, in you go. Persona 4 style, the TV consumes you. But instead of going into the human consciousness as Persona 4 likes to do to you, you go into the video game. You fall into a JRPG. Now, I want to say, and we're going to talk more about in the spoiler section, when you play the early part of the game, the RPG aspect, and then you fall into the game, keep note of different environments, because you see the things the hero gets to see, but you both see them at different perspectives and view the world differently. It's very interesting to go back to the opening and kind of re-look at how it's completely different in some instances. But you fall into this world, you are just a lost soul that can't interact with anyone. But after wandering around, you'll eventually encounter an old woman, mistaking you for her lost grandchild who everyone thought apparently died. This is triggered because the dog senses your presence that she owns. She welcomes you into the home, and you take a nap, and in the morning she gets you your original clothing that her grandchild had, and you bear this clothing, and it allows you to interact with the world finally. And this is where Moon kicks off. You will die if you don't go west. You tire out eventually, but you can increase that time by leveling up your love. So you must go into the world solving people's problems and saving fallen monsters' souls, as you encounter fallen foes from the hero who wanders the land. These poor monsters were slain unjustly, with no provocation from the point of view that you're in. So you're encouraged to go save the souls of the monsters so they can be revived, while solving residents of the world's problems. Both of these require you love, and when you go to sleep to rest up, you'll get levels from the Moon Queen, who will allow you to stay up later in this world. Now, it's pretty harsh in the beginning. Like, you get, like, I think, like, a half day, I think it was. Like, you get a very little amount of time. And this little gauge in the upper left, too, it's very important to understand it, because the game doesn't give you any context on how it even functions. The middle tells you what day it is, as there was actually a week system. Kind of reminds me of Legend of Mana, actually, honestly. Actually, there could be a very good reason for that, but we'll get in that when we talk all about the development-ish. I want to try to focus on it. Anyway, middle is what day it is. Now, you'll see the little triangle on there. If it's red, this means it's your last day. If that little line gets to that red triangle, you die. If the triangle is white, you're able to survive a whole day up to that point, and then whether it stays white or turns red means it'll be flipping to your last day. Now, you have to keep track of yourself how many days you get to live, because there's no counter saying like you're up to 3 or 4 days or such. But as long as the triangle doesn't turn red once the line gets to it, you still have more days to go then. So You'll get to the point where you have more days, and it'll be more important to do that, because many people do different things during day, night, and transitioning between their daily lives. Yes, I did say their daily lives. This was kind of crazy, in my opinion, considering this is originally a PS1 game. While not crazy these days, as many games feature NPCs that experience their daily lives, but all the characters do have their own life, and, actually, let me look something. Shenmue. I don't remember when Shenmue came out. Shenmue was always considered one of the first games to popularize that. Let's see, 2019. And Moon's original release came out in 1997. So it even beat Shenmue in that kind of aspect, actually. Though Shenmue being vastly more complicated in that, having a whole town, there's a little town in this, but it's a huge town, Shenmue, so that kind of widened the prospect. But anyway, you'll have to learn people's problems. Certain things can only happen on certain nights, certain days, when certain things are triggered, when certain things have happened. And it lets you play around a lot with the characters and seeking out monsters, as you have to find the ways to solve the problems, to get the soul to appear, to catch the soul, different things that trigger different things, on top of normal eventual mechanics of items and showing it to people. I don't feel like that was as much as a lot of point clicks. I feel like there was a lot of more interaction versus throwing items around, but you will have some, and it will depend on your problem solving too. I'd say, looking back at my playthrough, I got a good chunk of the game done blind, until I got to the point where I was just running around. I couldn't figure out what to do next. There are lots and lots of events stuffed in the world for you to find, and you will likely come across many of them just completely by accident. Like there's one interesting puzzle that happens way later in the game that, depending on the day you go into to do the puzzle, it can be easy or hard. And I got super lucky that I went in on the day where it's super easy. But when I went to look at, because there was a particular puzzle I wanted to double check, because I was kind of iffy about the localization on that puzzle, and I do have an answer about that. That'll be in the spoil section when we talk about that. But when I went to look and figure out whether there was a problem in the localization or not, I seen other people do that puzzle, and they all came across it on the day where it's really freaking hard. So there's lots of stuff to bump into. A lot of fun, weird events. Like, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to that in the spoiler section. There's a lot of things I want to talk about on this. But, continuing on, the art style, this, as I said, was originally a PS1 game. It's not stretched or anything, so the dimensions of the original dimensions of the game, so you'll just have black borders. They didn't do anything special on that. But graphically, I love the look of the game. It really does remind me of Saga Frontier, and there's a very good reason for that. Again, we'll get in that. But on top of just that, there was a really interesting aesthetic going with the game. Mixture of 3D, CG, 2D, and claymation. Monsters are all claymation. Then your character and most of the residents are 2D. There's a few little instances of 3D, and there's a lot of CG background type stuff going on in the environment. And there's just a lot of creative mixture of all that. And I think it keeps a very good theme of having everything represent a certain way. And being a Japanese game, it's very wacky. This isn't normal. Like, there's like a Japanese guy and an American family that literally live right next to each other, and like they aesthetically just clash against each other in such a bizarre way. Like, the game is super weird. Like, this is definitely a weirdo Japanese game, but I love it. It's just a unique experience. Now, being an adventure game, of course, it's very story heavy, puzzle heavy, and trying to figure out what you need to do, because you just fell in this world. It's not like somebody magically told you that what your end goal is right off the bat that easily. You kind of learn about what you need to go about to do in the game. So you'll walk up doing tasks and things, and you'll slowly get more and more of the world open. You'll find a way to quickly travel to different parts of the world, because when you only got like a day, traveling from one area to another part of the game can eat up a lot of your time. And while you can eat food to give you more time, it's just delaying the inevitable that you're either going to die or go to sleep to get your energy back. So you'll start unlocking a shortcut system and stuff, and you'll just eventually get the whole world opened up, and you'll slowly start figuring out tasks and things to do and what to bring to who and how and that. Now, there were a few things, like I said, that I did have trouble with when it came to getting to the conclusion, but I got quite a bit. I think I only had like 5 monsters left that I didn't save, and this isn't the type of game where you have to literally do everything. While we're on that note too, you can do everything. You can look for every single person and figure out what gives their love to you. You can save every single monster, see every single crazy event in the game. You can do it all, but it's not necessary. What is necessary is to complete a certain goal and be a certain level to get to that goal. There are a few instances where you have to travel, and that travel is consuming your time in the real time of the game. So the final goal does involve one of those scenes, so you also have to be able to last for that travel time. And that's one of your main goals in needing to level up in the game, on top of figuring out where you need to go. Now, the cast, they speak I like to call it just kind of a whip-off Simish, but a few of my viewers pointed out that they're actually speaking different lines in different languages spliced together. That was a very interesting idea. So it is gibberish at the end, basically, but it's a mixture of different language and words all just being combined to basically make gibberish. It's a very interesting idea. So if you're very, how should I say, worldly with dialect, you might actually catch a few glimpses of different languages in the gibberish the characters speak. the idea really reminds me of Yokotaru's style of his angelic language in the Drakengard Neo universe, where it is a combination of different languages as well. It's a fake language meant to sound like other languages. It's an interesting idea, and it kind of really reminds me of that. So I have to give a lot of credit on that. Now, music in this game is kind of a mixed bag in my opinion. The reason it's a mixed bag is the idea is really good, but in a sense, it also kind of loses the unique charm of certain areas. A lot of areas are dead silent outside of maybe hearing a bird or crickets or something like that, ambience. But a lot of areas are dead silent. And the reason for that is the game uses a system of moon discs. Moon discs are music. So you can actually make your own soundtrack and pick several songs to loop through and have that play in the background. And that's a really interesting idea to make your own music you want to listen to as you play throughout the game. You can set up the mood for scenes you want. You can do it all. And it's very nice. Now, there are some areas that do have music that will override your music in a very few occasions where instead the two overlap. Like when you go near the flower shop, for example, it doesn't cancel out your music. It overlaps with your music, so it sounds kind of weird. But most cases, it just cancels your music and plays whatever music it wants in a few locations. That's just a little minor complaint. I think the flower shop is the only instance of that. I think, if I remember correctly. But either way, it is a very nice idea. Personally, I wouldn't have mind just having some music set up for different areas, but like I said, I get the idea. It is a very nice idea, especially considering it's this is a PS1 game. This kind of concept of setting up like your own disc track of music, I don't think I knew of anything that really did that until like the original Xbox, where you could set that up in the games. There were several games, I believe. San Andreas, I think, what was it? Phantom Dust. Phantom Dust let you do that. Like, I don't think I ever know a game that old that lets you do a system like that. So it's very nice. The music is definitely hit and miss. It is probably one of the most diverse soundtracks for a game ever. Like, there are all kinds of music you would think wouldn't even exist in this game's setting. Very bizarre music. There were some I really like, though, that are also very bizarre. But there were some fitting ones. So there's definitely a way, there's at least likely going to be one song that you will like in the moon disc tracks. Because they go to everything. Traditional Japanese, crazy, lyrical songs, rock and roll and shit. Like, there's just everything. Peaceful music, sleepy music, actiony music, weird music. Like, it just goes all over the place. It's a very strange soundtrack indeed. And what's interesting is the soundtrack was, I think it was like 32 or so. Like, they got a lot of like little band indie people to make the soundtrack for this. It's just kind of crazy, and it really just makes the whole thing unique. Okay, it was 36 pieces of music for the game. That's how many there were. But it is very bizarre, and there's also interestingly a unique remix disc that has a few redone songs. Like there's this really fun one with Andor's theme. Oof, Andor, what a weirdo. But his remix theme's awesome. You should look it up on YouTube. I keep playing it once in a while because it's just so good. Oh yeah, it's a creative world. It's definitely screams PS1 era for sure. Like, if you grew up during the PS1 era, graphically and everything, you're just going to probably really dig the game, especially if you're a Squaresoft / Square Enix person of the time period. I believe didn't the module happen like only PS2, I believe, with Enix, I believe, if I remember correctly. So I think all PS1 games were still Squaresoft. I think Kingdom Hearts 1 and 12 were the first Square Enix, weren't they? Memories. I'm getting old. I'm getting so old. Ooh. But it's a delightful, charming game. Honestly, I really liked it. When I first heard about the Western localization, I piqued my interest more. Because, like I said, all I really knew about the game is it visually reminded me a lot of Saga Frontier, and I didn't really know much about. Interestingly, Toby Fox also got to talk to one of the creators of the game, and apparently the creator credits Toby Fox in his games as being a high point on why the game finally got a localization. Interestingly, they were actually planning to localize the original version, but it just got canned for some particular reason. Now, the people who made Moon, well, actually, before I go into the developer thing, I probably should just finish what I want to say about the game, because I got a lot of different things to talk about with the developer stuff. So let's just come to the conclusion of what I think about Moon itself. So, adventure game, fun, colorful, crazy, wacky Japanese shit. Definitely recommend it. Now, if you want this physically, eBay is not where you want to go right now. It is very, very expensive on eBay because, scalpers are getting way to do the whole, we want to make this very expensive, because the only physical version of this game is from Japan's premium premium edition. Now, the premium edition is a big box, comes with a big art book. It is a very nice art book because it is just piled full of games. I mean, not games. When you like a book that's full of games, no, it's packed full of artwork. I don't know how much artwork for Moon was ever made public. When looking up the game through Google, I couldn't find a lot of artwork, so I think a lot of this might be first-time artwork. And there's definitely lots of it. There's stuff on earlier designs of existing characters that are never in the game, backgrounds and stuff. It's very nice, thick book loaded with artwork and stuff, and some even old notes and things. Sadly, it's all in Japanese, so you won't be able to read it, but you can definitely enjoy the artwork, which is basically 95% of the book. You also get these lovely little artwork cards in a envelope. Very fancy little envelope, very nice. And you also get a small little manual and a small sample of music on a soundtrack disc. It's a very lovely box. It's very simple. It's kind of, if you were a long time viewer of Spoonie back in the old day, like the box design kind of reminds me of how he described one of the Ultima boxes, where it was black, pretty simple. It has the title on it. Now, it does have some outlining of some of the character sprites, but you don't see, like, they're all just filled in white. You don't got any detail. It's pretty simple. It leaves kind of a nice, mysterious look to the whole thing. So, it's very nice. But scalpers on eBay are trying to get like $100+ on it. Now, it is currently available, and as far as I know, this probably your best bet where to get, but there might be some third-party side sellers of small variety that might have it. But the Moon Premium Edition is available on PlayAsia for $89.99, so $90. Very expensive even when it's not being scalped, because the ones on eBay are like 120. They're just waiting for it to be sold out, but it's still available. So if you're definitely interested in it, that would be your bet. Now, it is important to note on that side that I didn't know this until looking into research about the game. Again, I want to get into things about the developers, but Limited One Game actually released one of their newer titles, where their Onion games, where their old company, the old company, that again, developer stuff, we'll get into it, but Blackboard, that Limited One did, is a game that they made, and looking at footage of it, you can see a lot of similar art style in the game. So I didn't even know that. So I'm very interested in trying Blackboard now after playing through Moon. So though Limited One has already worked with Onion games, so there could be a very good chance that Moon may get a Limited One release in America, but currently it's unknown. I didn't want to take the risk of the Premium Edition selling out. That's why I got it. Now, obviously, if you don't care about physicality, it looks like the eShop price for America is $18.99 and the UK price is $14.49. So, almost $20 for America. Yeah, I'd say that's a good price, honestly. You definitely get your bang for your buck, I'd say, if you're into adventure games. There's lots of things to look for, and if you're 100% completed, you'll be able to finish the game long before you do everything in the game. There's plenty of side things to do. Sadly, though, when it comes to, like, post content or maybe like unlockable or something, when you're done with the game, the only thing you can do is go back to where you last saved, which you save when you go sleep. That's when the game saves. But and you can just look for anything else that you didn't finish, because there are lots of secrets. Like there's a treasure hunt. Seriously, you will stumble upon... It's like, I've watched 3 people's playthroughs. It's really interesting seeing how people stumble either into things you never encountered, or just how they stumble into a completely different take of a situation that you got into. It's kind of fun, actually, watching. Like, it kind of has that feel of watching someone play Dark Souls blind willy. Just kind of see how their thought process on tackling the world is. So, I think, price-wise, I think Moon is worth a fantastical $25. I think it's worth more than what it's digitally. Now, like I said, you gotta keep in mind it was originally a PS1 title, so it was a full-price PS1 title likely, though I don't know what the Japanese price was. So, but I definitely would actually pay more than the digital price. Now, obviously, like I said, I bought the premium edition, so I paid $90 in shipping to get this thing. Oh, I used all my PlayAsia coins on it too. I think it was like $20, which covered the shipping and took a bit off the price, but still, very expensive. But considering the game, this is something I'm happy to have on my shelf in the end. It definitely is, looking into the history, a very interesting point of history that we got to miss out on the PlayStation 1. So, I definitely think it's worth checking out. Now, if I didn't make it clear, the localized version that we got here in the West is only on the Switch. So, you can get the PS1 version, but there's not even a localized patch for it. It's pretty cheap, too, to get that disc, so if you're interested in that route, you can go that way, but if you want the English version, the Switch is the only one, and as far as I know, absolutely no plans to put it on anything else, so Now, let's get into spoilers, and then I want to talk about some of the developer stuff for that. So, oh, maybe I should save... Now, let's get into developers first, because some people might be interested in that before we get into spoilers. Because obviously, if you want to know my opinion on spoilers, you can always just skip that. So let's talk about the developers. So, I didn't know anything about the developers before, during, and when I finished and started looking into research for this. Holy crap, there's a lot of interesting things you can find out. So, the original developer team made 3 games and then broke apart. Then the developers of they kind of broke into 3 new companies. And what's interesting is you, me, and others may have actually played some of these games. Tulip, Little King's Story, Tiny Wobo, or what? The little robot screw thing that was on the GameCube, and I haven't played any of those ones. I have played Little King's Story before, though. They've actually worked on other games. It's very kind of surprising, honestly. I was kind of really surprised the fact they did other games. But they broke apart into different games. Tulip is interesting because Tulip, you could consider a spiritual sequel of Moon. Other games they worked on were Captain Rainbow, which is a notorious Wii game. A lot of people were pissed that we didn't get in the West, me included. Another one of the developers also went to make a group that made the Tingle games on the DS as well. Some bizarre shit. These people had their hands in some really weird and notorious games. But then they would eventually come back together and make Onion games, which would make Daddy Dungeon, Legend of the Brave Yamada, which is a game I'm always bothering Doug about getting on a Switch cartridge, because it actually came out on Switch, but it was originally a mobile game. But they added a lot. It's a very interesting, simple game, but that's going in. Then there was Blackboard, and Million Onion Hotel, which is just a mobile game. So they started off really slow, and it looks like they're looking into their backlog. And I have also told Onion Games I really hope that they dig up their other 2 games from their original company, which was a PlayStation 1 and a Dreamcast game. I'd love to see these come to the West. It's like, come on, come on, come on. But even more interesting is the game Moon has several references to another game. The person who made the art, I believe, the artist, if I remember correctly, worked on, one of them did, I'm pretty sure it was the artist, worked on Super Mario RPG Legend of the 7 Stars. One of the characters is a direct reference of Geno. His name is rearranged, and his design is very reminiscent of Geno. And what's interesting is, I learned this when looking through the localization differences in that. They even kept the fact, both in the Japanese and English version, that his name was a anagram of Geno. Geno's name is different in the Japanese version, but even in the Japanese version, it was a rearranged version of his name. So, very nice little interesting Easter egg. And there's a very good reason for a lot of these similarities and Easter eggs. Is a lot of these developers used to be part of Squaresoft. That's like crazy. It's like no wonder a lot of interesting reminiscing things, like looking like Saga Frontier, having several characters that are pretty like... The Geno character is pretty obvious, but there's a few other characters, like the King, for example, looks kind of like Smithy a little bit when you think about it. There's a lot of interesting little duology, though, that. So, the development team is really interesting, because they've had their hands in a lot of weird things, even outside their own companies, that they would get into. So, I mean, like, let's see. This developer actually, when it comes to newer stuff, he actually was in Paper Mario Sticker Store. The poor guy. That poor guy. Oh, yeah, did I mention several of them worked on Chrono Trigger, too? Whoop, I might miss that one, too. Yeah, this is kind of crazy. These people have a very interesting history. This one worked on Castlevania Soul of the Moon, Castlevania Chronicles, Castlevania 4. They also worked on Mario Luigi Superstar. That's the one that did the Tingle games. Like, it's just kind of crazy all the stuff these people have had their hands in during Squaresoft, outside Squaresoft. I'm kind of surprised at many of these games that I know of. Like, I knew of Tulip. I actually stupidly had a very good opportunity to buy Tulip. Funny enough, a long time ago, Tulip was in a GameStop in my area. I think it was a gutted, being sold as new but gutted copy for $50 or something. Now, I've seen footage of Tulip, and I was just kind of like, I don't know. Because I've seen people just brutally die constantly in that game, and I'm like, I don't know if I'd really dig that. Now I kind of regret it, because it's, after playing Moon and basically learning Tulip is basically a spiritual sequel to it, I'm kind of interested in it. Even though I know it's more brutal than Moon is when it comes to its concept. But now Tulip is worth a lot of fucking money, so it's one of those few games I really regret not fucking buying when I had the opportunity. I need to make like a list, top 10 fucking stupid things I did that made me regret not buying a game. I really should do that, actually. That might be a good idea for a video, honestly, but it's just kind of amazing, all these different games. I never really knew there was so much cross intersection with a lot of these people and these companies and that. So it's a very interesting history to look back, and I definitely recommend taking a look back at some of them. It's definitely interesting weed. There's a few videos out there that talk about the developers in depth too. You can look up if you're interested in that as well. But definitely very interesting. Very interesting. So, I guess let's just get on to what I think of the spoiler territory then. 3, 2, 1, go. So, spoiling wise, first thing I like to talk about is like the little touches with the RPG opening towards being in the actual game. One of the things I was really confused about with the game's RPG opening, like, I did an audio test, before I stream and do stuff like that, to get the audio leveled compared to me talking and that, so I played the little RPG segment when I was trying out the audio levels and that, and when you get the legendary gear from the little house to the left, I thought I had, like, somehow triggered something when I was walking out, because your character, like, does a weird, like, kind of bump thing, so I wasn't sure if that was something that I was accidentally triggered. I couldn't get it to happen again. Then when I went to actually start the actual playthrough for the stream, it did it again, and I mentioned I don't know why that happens. That happens because if you keep that in mind when you play the game, you bump into the knight in the front of that building in the game. So that interestingly tells you the knight actually doesn't see you. He doesn't acknowledge your existence in the world. It's a really interesting little detail. And then you'll see how he sees the NPCs, the baker, the flower store, the barkeeper, and how you see them for who they really are and how they look and that. It's very interesting how the hero perceives the world completely different from you, views your dog as a monster, views the Americans' family pet as a monster, views the rocket ship that you get in to go to the moon for the end game as an airship. Very, very interesting perspective on how they look, even though you only get to see 4 scenes from the hero's perspective. Now, for the twist, you learn that you need to open this door of light. You have to get to the moon and stuff. But, if you've played through Moon, you're wanting my opinion on the actual, like, ending. takes a little while to sit on it. Like, when you first have it happen, it's just kind of weird. Like, open the door the next time you see it and you either, like, continue playing or stop. And I'm like, is this like the only winning move is to not play thing? You know, and you watch a character open the door, leave, go outside. Like, it's a message of not wasting your life playing video games. And, like, I know that's very counterintuitive to someone who plays tons of video games in his free time on the side of work and real life stuff. So it's kind of a weird thing for me. And it kind of leaves a very confusing thing on whether, like, the characters are free in the world or spiritually, or kind of like the way I view the ending, the scene during the credits, is that the characters got to live their own life. I don't think it literally means they came into the real world per se, but I guess you know, it's left open-ended, so it's kind of up to you. But I think something Toby Fox said about a question someone asked him with Deltarune to Undertale, I think kind of feels fitting to me with the ending. When Deltarune's demo thing came out for Chapter 1, a lot of people were asking if it was the same universe. Is it a sequel? Is it a prequel? And Toby Fox said something, this isn't a direct quote, but this is basically along the lines of what he was saying, though. He said something along the lines that the way you left Undertale is the way those characters are. If you left them in a world of happiness and freedom from the underground, that is the world that you gave those characters, and that's how it's left. I kind of feel like stepping away from the game allowed the characters to be unattached to the programming and they could live their own lives. Because it's a game. It's following the rules of a predetermined path. You as the player interacting with it has no ending. You gave and no ending. Of course, I also liked the twist that essentially you're fighting yourself. The hero is playing out the acts that you did in the game. So you're kind of fighting literally yourself, which is interesting how the game sets that up. Because if you remember back when I talked about the story, a grandma mistakes you for her grandson that a lot of people thought died. You find, if you really, really dig into the story, and you find a few secrets and stuff, you can actually find out the minister did some weird ritual with a white arrow and made her grandson become the hero and sent him out to solve the problem of the world, which was they thought a dragon ate the light of the moon. So that was his solution to that. But it's just kind of interesting how even in the game's universe it sets up the whole aspect that you're fighting yourself, your save file, what you did in the game. And I think it really does show a very good, in that sense, I think it does show you should be open to other perspectives. It's important to keep an open mind that sometimes things ain't always how they seem, and I think that's kind of the message I liked it more myself. Not to say that, you know, getting up, explore, and enjoy the real world isn't bad either. That's a great message as well. I just, when it comes to the cut content, and there was cut content, interestingly enough, when researching this game, I feel like this has the whole yick kind of problem. Not as bad as yick though, but when it comes to the cut ending, the cut ending in Moon kind of went in a little bit of a darker thing about the cycle of your character being the hero and then ultimately becoming the dragon, healing the world, and then the hero coming to kill the dragon again, repeating a cycle over and over again. I think that could have led to maybe a more interesting ending myself, but that's just my opinion. Like I said, maybe they ran into a brick wall and didn't think how they wanted to solve that. Maybe like how do we stop the cycle? I'm not sure. I don't know if there's like any. I couldn't find any devs 2 cents on the ending. That maybe I should bug them on Twitter about that. That could be a very interesting conversation now. But I don't know. Just the whole aspect of leaving the game. When you think about like every time someone asks you to open the door, they're basically telling you to leave the game. And I get that now, but it just. It kind of feels like it comes out of left field, if that makes sense. Like, you get there, and it's just kind of like, well, this feels like a sudden get the hell out of the game kind of thing. And just feels kind of sudden to me, but that's, again, just me. There are some interesting scenes I missed, too. Like, there's a whole nighttime school thing I completely missed. That could have added a little context for a few things. But I do really like the story. It has a very nice message of love and peace and trying to keep an open mind of people's perspectives, enjoying life and that. All good messages. Nothing wrong with any of that. Now, when it came to some of the localization puzzles, I don't really have a problem with any of the localization. I think it was a pretty good job and everything. But as I said in the review, that there was something I was a little confused about. One of the big head scratchers for me was the mushroom puzzle. Now, traversing the mushroom forest is simple. When it comes to the puzzle, I mean, is getting to the fishing spot. Getting to the fishing spot in the mushroom forest is mandatory because 2 items you need to make the rocket are located there. It is a necessary thing. All the parts that give you the rocket are necessary. So, you need the fishing spot. What I was confused about is those two of the NPCs you translate the language with the tablets you find in the game. They give you, one gives you 2 colors and the other one gives you 3 colors. Doing either the 3 colors and then the 2 colors, or the 2 colors and then the 3 colors in those 2 orders, neither one caused anything to happen. There was a third NPC that I overlooked that gives you the pattern. You don't get to translate all his words, but you're supposed to come to the conclusion because he's listing the there's a first word that those 2 NPCs both say, and you're supposed to use those words with the third one to know the order that they're saying, and then you do that order, and that's how you solve that. I thought maybe there was an error and he put the colors in the wrong order. So there was an additional third step I didn't realize. So my bad. It's good it's in the game, so I didn't really have a problem with the localization at all. Though some people have commented on a few odd wordings, and I feel those are all intentional, like some of the spells used in the RPG mode. I feel like that's an intentional haha kind of thing. I don't think that was meant to be a bad or anything like that. I thought the localization was done well. It works, aesthetically looks fine. Because, some of these upgraded port remaster type things, like Square Enix has been doing it a lot with some of their titles, and they give new interfaces and shit that just, ugh. A lot of them look bad. Like, look at the one they did for Chrono Trigger on PC, which I heard they vastly overhauled. I don't even know what it looks like currently, but when it came out, it looked awful. It looked fucking awful. It's like, who's making, like, please stop making the aesthetics of the menus look like shit. It's like, it looks so ugly with the game. It's so sad. But there's no issue with that in Moon. Aesthetically, the translation looks perfectly matching with the game and everything. Localization's good. I don't really have any problem. Admittedly, it's not like I had a script that told every single thing that's different. I'm sure if you were to dig, I'm sure there's some creative differences. you could find, but I didn't find anything particularly off or anything that seemed censorshipy or anything. Actually, funnily enough, there's a few jabby jokes at old humor that some people might find a bit inappropriate for the time. So I'd have to say, considering those are in, I don't think there was probably anything to be concerned about being censored or anything in the game. But I think it's just a simple little conclusion that you experience this world, you help it, you try to stop the hero version of you from destroying everything, and ultimately, I feel like leaving the game in its conclusion of opening the door, experiencing life, left the characters to no longer be following, as they call it, the wimwams. But overall, I liked it. I think it's worth experiencing if you're into adventure games. Like I said, it's not an RPG. Your character does level up with love, but I mean, you know, it just makes the day last longer. It's not a... Oops, sorry. Sorry about that. But it's not like there's a system of I don't know. I was going to say a system... crap, that made me lose my train of thought. Point is, good game. I recommend it. Check it out. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Leave me a message on Twitch. Feel like you learned anything interesting, feel free to leave a like. And if you feel like you learned absolutely nothing at all, feel free to leave a dislike guilt-free. And until next time, I hope you stay out there. This is love, that is love. Love still dots the wall.